welcome to Viewpoint. My name is Volodymyr Solohub, and right now to talk about the cases of the corrupt judges during the Euromaidan Revolution, I'm joined by the lawyer, Mr Markiyan Halabala. Mr Halabala, welcome to Viewpoint.
Hello.
Mr Halabala, during the Euromaidan Revolution, dozens of corrupt judges were throwing the protesters and Euromaidan activists into jail on bogus charges. And until today, almost 2 years after the beginning of the Euromaidan Revolution, none of these judges were dismissed or fired. So can you tell us what is happening with these corrupt judges right now?
Well, you know, since a quite complicated procedure of firing or dismissal of the judges is hard to do. And until now we had no final decision on their dismissal, since it have been this decision have to be prepared and made by the Parliament. Yes, there are final decisions just on the level of the High Council of Justice. They made like a decision
which has not been created until September of this year.
Not September. They started their work on 10th of June for this year, and they have not been worked for 1 year. Yeah. Unfortunately, yes, it's not, the Ukrainian people are not satisfied with such a situation, yes.
Yeah, well, there are some procedural obstacles, but what about the criminal cases? Obviously, for the Higher Council, the Higher Council on Justice, there has to be, prior for them to introducing the candidacy of a particular judge for firing by the Parliament or by the President, there has to be a criminal case open against this judge. Have there been any cases open? Are there any judges under investigation? Yeah,
there are judges under investigation, and General Prosecutor Office proceed the investigation on their illegal decision that had been made by those judges during Euromaidan events. Yes, and as far as I know, there are near 5 judges that are under investigation, and I don't know if the proceeding against them will be successful, but I hope that it will be done.
Well, there are only 5 judges, but obviously there were more. There were dozens of them all across Ukraine, all across the country. The corrupt judges, they were throwing activists into jail just to make sure that they don't go on the streets, they don't continue their protests. You were also, Mr. Halabala, part of the Special Investigative Commission, which was created by the Ukrainian Parliament to investigate these matters. So based on your findings, how many judges are we talking about?
It's hard to say and to estimate the correct number of those judges, because we have examined just those judges regarding whom we received the claims, you know, from the protesters, from General Prosecutor Office.
How many claims did you receive? How many judges we're talking about?
We are talking about more than 300 judges from all over Ukraine.
So these are not dozens, these are hundreds of judges.
Yeah, absolutely, but the number, of course, is much more that make the illegal decisions. So 300 is just the judges that we know about that.
So 300 judges versus 5 under investigation. Why such a small number?
It's well, you know, it's hard to explain for me. I think that like a General Prosecutor Office has chosen just those cases where they see the very strong proofs, and they see the most severe violations of the law by the judges. Yes, those 300 judges can be dismissed, but maybe they cannot be punished in accordance with the criminal law.
So, are you blaming the General Prosecutor Office for stalling this process? Because recently there has been a lot of criticism on the General Prosecutor's Office in general, on the General Prosecutor in particular, from everyone, from the Ukraine's European partners, from the United States, personally the Assistant Secretary of the on Eurasian Affairs, Ms. Victoria Nuland, personally the U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Mr. Pite. They were accusing of the General Prosecutor's Office on stalling the reforms, on sabotaging the reforms. Is this also the case with the judges?
Partially, I think, yes, because at the very beginning, when Euromaidan won, when the new authorities come, you know, the General Prosecutor Office refused to investigate at all the cases against the judges. Just when the attorneys and me have met with Mr. Yarema, he was a General Prosecutor at that time, we said to him, you have to investigate those cases, because they refused to conflict with the judges, because they understood that this prosecutor office will come to those courts where the judges work, and they will have the problems with those judges.
So what are you saying, Mr. Halabala, that the prosecutors are not willing to start the investigation of a particular judge out of fear for judges' retaliation?
Something like that, you know, because this prosecutor office will come to those very courts, you know. So they, as I have told before, they are choosing just those cases.
But isn't it outrageous at least, and illogical at most? Because if the prosecutors do their job properly, if the prosecutors prove that these judges were corrupt, that these judges were violating the law, they will no longer be judges, and these prosecutors won't be in their courts.
Maybe yes. I think that it's not so logical, but you know, there are so complicated connections between these general prosecutor offices on the courts, you know, and sometimes they illegally use those instruments for making illegal decisions, you know. For example, in criminal cases where prosecutors comes and say, hey, you gotta put this guy to the jail, yes, you gotta put him, you gotta detain him, and if a judge refuses to do it, so prosecutor is not satisfied with that. Even in those cases where there are no a strong evidence, prosecutors try to solve his problem not by giving the normal proofs, but by the calling to the judges and say, hey, please make such a decision, you know. So
looks like everything is very interconnected and interlinked.
Absolutely, especially on the high level, you know, because those, as far as I know, those criminal proceedings against the judges of the first instance court, they're afraid to make or suspect the judges from the appeal court, for example.
Mr. Halabala, we're talking here about the criminal investigations, the investigations which is being initiated by the General Prosecutor's Office. But what about, and this doesn't seem to be going anywhere, what about the civil claims? Hundreds of activists were detained. They were detained illegally. Are any of them filing civil claims against the courts, against the government, for being illegally detained, for claiming perhaps the punitive damages?
I know just few examples on where there are such claims, and it's as far as I know, it's in Dnipropetrovsk, and there is attorney at law Vitaly Pogosyan, and he makes such claims and won them in Ukrainian courts. Unfortunately, those victims of illegal decisions are not trying to punish those judges and to punish those investigators and prosecutors that prosecuted them. Do you believe
if they tried to do this, if they were filing the civil lawsuits, this would help, first of all, bring some sort of justice?
Yeah, sure, because people have to be active. You know, they have to prosecute those guys that made the illegal decisions against them. Because if you are passive, and just claiming, well, why nothing is changing in that very country? Hey, if you are sitting on your chair, nothing will change.
Well, that sounds pretty incredible that the activists who were out on the streets protesting are not willing to defend their own rights right now in courts.
Yeah, absolutely. For example, in the course of work in the temporary special commission you have mentioned before, we saw that the main number, the majority of the claims are from prosecutors, but not from the victims that were engaged in those very claims, you know. So and for me, it's hard to understand why it's so.
Yeah, perhaps the victims do not know to the full extent their rights, do not know that they can do this, and perhaps the civil activists have to raise the campaign of encouraging, now when it's been almost 2 years of these events, of encouraging the activists to go forth and file the civil claims if the criminal claims are not working. Mr. Markiyan, thank you very much for coming to us and sharing your thoughts. Very interesting. Hopefully the justice will be served this way or another. Thank you very much for your time. This has been Volodymyr Solohub for Viewpoint, talking about corrupt judges with a lawyer, Mr. Markiyan Halabala. Thank you for watching us.